So good.
It's as in tune as Tom would be live.
It's terribly out of tune.
The Weekly Warm Pipe.
All right, let me go full screen here and apologize to everyone. I'm sorry we missed a week. All right, we've been going for a year and a half.
I mean, we've been going pretty strong, you know.
Putting out 2 episodes for part of that year with your Warp Pipe Wednesdays and the weekly Warp Pipe. But unfortunately, we couldn't pump out an episode last Saturday, so apologize on that.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, Russ. So hopefully they just missed us a whole lot.
Hopefully. I was out in California. If you guys didn't know, I did attend the Southeast Games. No, SoCal Gaming Expo in Southern California, Pasadena. So I was out there and I was handing out some weekly Warp Pipe stickers. I wore my shirt and a few people approached me, said they enjoyed the podcast. So I appreciate you guys chatting with me. And it was a good time for sure. We'll get into that for the Warp Pipe Wednesday episode, the episode coming up this Wednesday. You can hear all about the convention, but we want to dive in for this episode. We're talking about same game, different system.
That's right.
A lot of times, similar game would come out on whether it be NES and Master System, Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, or even a game that was slightly similar, not the exact same game. We kind of want to dive into those a little bit, maybe say which we prefer. Did one game want us to buy it, that system to play it over another one? We did reach out to you guys, seeing if you were a Nintendo kid or a Sega kid with some of these and what were your favorite games playing. So we'll check out your comments as well. But it's good to be back.
It is good to be back
with my buddy Jay.
That's right. I missed you, Russ.
Took a little break. It's all right. We're back.
That's all right. So what game are we going to talk about first, my friend? What you thinking?
I made a short list we can dive into. Double Dragon, if you guys don't know, did come out on the NES, but it also came out on the Sega Master System as well.
That's right.
Do you have much experience with the Master System version? I'm sure both of us played the NES version.
I surprisingly have because here's the deal. I was told for a while I had a Master System and I loved it, and I wish I wouldn't have sold it. But for a while I had the Master System, and I was told by somebody that Double Dragon is superior on the Master System because of the 2-player mechanics.
Right. I did want to bring that up. For whatever reason, Nintendo decided the 2-player for Double Dragon and NES, it was you played single. When you died, then player 2 started, essentially. Yep. You weren't at the same time, where it's a beat 'em up game. That's what you want.
But if my memory serves me correctly, I did not like the control on the Master System one. So
okay.
I couldn't even get past plus I never had anybody to play with, so I didn't get to enjoy what made it better, quote unquote. And I only saw it. I saw it as inferior. I definitely like the NES one way better. Maybe I would think differently if I gave it another chance, but I remember playing it and thinking, why did somebody tell me this was better? It's not. Like, okay, who cares if you can play 2 players if the controls are bad?
Right. I mean, it's good selling point if you game a lot with friends and you have people over, so you're like, all right, we can play together.
Or like somebody that had like a little brother, with them.
Right. Yeah. So then I can see it that way. I put so much time into the first one. I can say I personally never played this here on Master System. We got some gameplay footage up right here. It looks pretty good. It looks comparable to the NES version.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks okay, and I think the 2-player thing was probably great, but for me, I just remember it controlling poorly, and if the game doesn't control well, then I don't, that's a huge strike for me. The NES one, I feel like controls really well. I mean, I've even beaten the NES one once or twice. But the Master System one, every time I picked it up, I was like, "This is just." I would much rather be just playing the NES one, so I never played it. Which is
Right.
part of the reason why I got rid of my Master System, because every time I played my Master System, I kind of just wished I was playing NES.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it comes down to whether, you're a Nintendo kid or a Sega Genesis kid. So maybe you prefer one over the other. I had an NES growing up, and my neighbor had a Sega. He didn't have a Master System, so I didn't get to experience much Master System until now. With like my SNES Classic was modded, so they added the games on there, so I'm able to experience them that way. But also is a little different because I'm not using a Master System controller, so I'm
Right.
not getting the full effect. Essentially, like you
I
said, their D-pad's a little different than the NES, so it feels maybe a little bit.
I think the next chance I get to purchase a clean Master System, I'm going to do it and
Yeah.
dive back into that. But I regret selling my first one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've done videos on my channel with Master System. I felt like they didn't do as well as my NES one, so maybe the viewers that are on my channel are more NES fans than Master System.
And I think just less people had it back in the day too, so
Yeah,
there's a smaller fan base for it.
right, right. Another one I did want to bring up was Ninja Gaiden was actually on NES, and it was also on the Master System, which I only had found out from watching Retro Liberty back in the day had mentioned it, and I was like, "Yo, this looks freaking good."
Yeah, yeah. No, I can't remember. Did it play the exact same as the NES version, or was it more like the arcade Ninja Gaiden?
Uh, so it wasn't like the arcade Ninja Gaiden. You could
Okay.
say it played kind of like the NES one, but they added some stuff to it, essentially.
Oh, what did they add?
So I'll bring up some gameplay if you guys are watching on the YouTube. And so the first Ninja Gaiden, they didn't have this on NES, but he can like hang from branches and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So you had that option, and the music's completely different as well. And I feel like it's got, different, it does have different cutscenes, and the music plays a little bit different. The the downside for me on it is how you go screen to screen when you're playing. Sometimes the screen loads and there's like a pit like in the new screen, and you're just running, and then you don't know it's coming up, and you just fall in, whereas the NES version had a better, I don't know, scrolling or how they handled the changing of the screens a little bit.
Interesting.
But you can hang on these little branches here and then jump up, which is cool. I like that. They didn't add anything like that to Ninja Gaiden. I think it let you climb the wall in Ninja Gaiden 2 on NES.
I mean, you couldn't climb the wall in Ninja Gaiden 1. You could essentially jump up it.
Right.
You could cling to it and jump up it, but you couldn't climb it per
Climb it
se.
until 2. But like here, he's going to move to the next screen, and then it's like, boom, pitfall right there. If you didn't know that was coming, you literally fall into the pit. But they have all, different secondary items, just like in the Ninja Gaiden on NES. So it plays similar. They're both ninja games. They're both platformers, but they
Right.
took a slightly different direction with it.
Huh.
So I've never played this game fully through, but I did give it a little bit playthrough, and I like the
Oh, you know what I'm thinking of? I
yeah.
remember playing Ninja Gaiden on the TurboGrafx 16.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
on there. I'll have to look this up. Was it?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, yeah, sure it was.
Oh, I see the little branches now that you're talking
Ninja.
about.
I realized I didn't have the screen up with the gameplay, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, they
yeah.
can't see any of this that I'm
I thought I just chalked it up to my computer sucks and I wasn't able to see what you were showing. That's why I didn't say anything. My
Fair
bad.
enough.
Oh, this. So, you know what's funny
Oh, it is
is
on PC Engine. Yeah.
I played this Ninja Gaiden on Game Gear, which totally makes sense because a Game Gear is just a small Master System.
Yeah. Okay. I could totally see this being on Game Gear. Yeah. I mean, it's fun, certainly, but I imagine most kids experience the NES version.
I do see how it's kind of wonky, but I can kind of see how it's like it scrolls kind of weird.
Right. I just feel like you can't go as flowing as the NES one, where when you transition to a screen in this, you really have to be careful if you don't know what's coming up, or else you're going to fall into some pits or get hit by an enemy.
Yeah.
So it becomes a little jarring, but still a good game. I wouldn't think they made it terrible with not following the same format. I don't really enjoy the arcade one.
I don't either.
Having played the NES version so much, I'm like, I don't like this arcade one.
I don't either. I don't
I'm
like
so
the
used to it.
kicking and the animation looks weird to me. I just
Right.
want that NES one. But yeah, but it's on the Master System. I'm sorry, on the TurboGrafx 16. It's essentially exactly like the NES. Just the graphics are handled slightly different.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can pull up some gameplay of that.
But I'm pretty sure gameplay wise it's identical. So
Ninja Ryu. How do you say Rakuten?
I have
think
no
they're
idea.
calling it. I guess that's what they're calling it on the TurboGrafx, at least on this title of the. All right, let's skip ahead.
Yeah, but
So
I think
So the cutscenes are similar to the NES, but the art style's a little
different.
different.
But see how he runs the same and he holds his weapon the same.
Yes. Oh, and you get that more in-depth background there with the
Yeah.
scrolling.
But like you can clearly see that's the same level design.
Yes.
Same enemy design.
Essentially an upgraded version.
Yeah.
Now, I wish why didn't they do this when they port it? This could add to the list. You have Ninja Gaiden Trilogy on the Super Nintendo.
That's right.
Ninja Gaiden 1, 2, and 3, and they were literally the NES games. They didn't do anything to them. It's just a compilation. You could have had that compilation on NES.
That's
if you're not doing anything to the graphics. So I'm curious if anyone played this one.
Yeah, I've only played it since I got the Mini.
Oh, and they included it on the Mini? Yours is
that's the only reason I know about it, because it was on the Mini, and I was like, oh, cool.
Interesting. Yeah. Hey, first of me hearing about it, so I totally would give this a go.
That's right.
All right, moving on. What else is on my list? I added. This is probably the big one. Mortal Kombat, right?
Mortal Kombat.
Super Nintendo, came out on Sega Genesis. What were you choosing? Did you already own a Super Nintendo or a Sega? And you're like, all right, well, I enjoyed Mortal Kombat in the arcade. I want to get the home port. Or
so
did your friend have it?
This was a game that I wanted but never got. But at that point, I already had the Super Nintendo, and I remember being a little salty that there was no blood code, and all I got was sweat or whatever, gray blood. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I guess they chalked it off as sweat.
And then the only other difference I can really remember was Scorpion. On one, he said, "Come here," and on one, he said, "Get over here." Come here! Okay. Get over here!
Well, I wonder if he alternated.
No.
I wonder if that was in the arcade. Didn't he always say? Did he say, "Come here and get over here"? I feel like he said both.
One was exclusive to Genesis, I'm pretty sure.
That?
I'm saying it's a fact. If I'm wrong,
that's it.
Let me know in the comments below.
I will say the main difference, if you were playing on Sega, you most likely had the 3-button controller, which made it very awkward to play that fighting game.
Because you had to hit start to switch from punching to kicking.
Right, because they set it up with high punch, block, low punch. Then you hit start with low kick, block, high, whatever. So I was like, that's awkward. You need it. A 6-button controller. Right. To really enjoy it there. I'd always remap my Super Nintendo, so I would have maybe block on the right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just like on Street Fighter.
Yeah. Or like any other fighters, I put the medium kicks or punches on my trigger buttons there.
You only wanted strong and weak.
Right. I was like, who's using medium? All right, it's either quick jabs or all in.
That's hilarious.
And then I guess it also comes down to how the music sounds, right? You're getting a little different sound.
That is true.
You're getting that Sega more Genesis.
Genesis kind of wow. That's the X-Men sounds, but it kind of has that. I don't even know how to describe it. It's definitely a different sound that Genesis makes. More twangy.
But I thought you did. That's like the opening, and when it was like
Of the X-Men.
No, of the I thought of Mortal Kombat.
Oh,
I feel like that's one of the parts in there. I'll see if I can.
man, I have such fond memories of that little probe screen because I had this on Game Gear. Fight.
Now let's see. Do they have? Yeah, they have all the characters on there, so that's good.
Yeah, on the Genesis they didn't have. The Game Gear that they didn't have one of them.
They took out some.
Might have been Kano. Can't remember.
I mean, I will say it's a pretty good port though, from going from the arcade to home console. Looking at this, I mean, they got the moving backgrounds.
Yeah,
and again, the Sega one has the blood right there.
They were great ports.
Let's look up the Super Nintendo real quick and see kind of back to back here. Like I said, my neighbor had the Sega Genesis, so I went over his house to play the game.
Let's see that gray sweat.
Let's see, fast forward into a fight with
Johnny
Cage. Johnny Cage.
Like what a thing to have like a nut punch
as your
like what a 90s thing to put in a video game.
Kick him in the nards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even. Yeah, it's not even white. Yeah, it almost looks like sweat was punching him. Do we get a fatality? We do. And even the fatality, he just puts his foot into him and he falls.
Yeah.
So you're getting shafted on the fatalities.
Getting shafted on some sweet blood.
I know. So now this kind of continued on because then you had Mortal Kombat 2 come out. You had Mortal Kombat 3 come out. So I wonder down the line, maybe some preferred some of the others better.
I think Mortal Kombat 2, Nintendo was like, we got to play hardball. Give the kids what they want. Give them the blood.
Right. Yeah, because here it is on the Super Nintendo. And then I feel like it probably works better for Mortal Kombat 3 because you got the run button and you have more. You had more buttons? No, I guess you would. I guess if you have a 6-button Sega Genesis controller.
Yeah.
There you go. Good fatality right there with Jax getting knocked off the...
knocked onto a big concrete floor.
Yeah. So they learned their lesson after that.
Oh, yeah. They were like, we're done with this playing nice.
But these definitely were decent ports, I'd say, from the arcade. Unless you were going handheld. Handheld, unfortunately, they couldn't. They had to either cut characters.
Yeah.
To have it on there. I don't even know how they have this ported on the Game Boy. So you're like,
yeah.
Jeez.
It doesn't even matter if you have the blood code on the Game Boy.
Right. What are you going to see there? I mean, heck, it was on a Tiger handheld as well. So
on the Game Gear, it was 212 down up
for the blood code.
That's right. It's in my brain.
I dig it.
What else you got, Russ?
I got Zombies Ate My Neighbors. That came out on Super Nintendo and Sega.
Yeah, I played on the SNES, never played on the Sega.
Yeah. Same
Is that
as
much
me.
differences?
There's a little bit with, I want to say the placement of your tracker or something like that. I'll bring up some gameplay, but
okay.
I spent all my time on the Super Nintendo playing that one there for sure. But they released it on both consoles for you. Let's see. Oh, Sega Genesis, I'll put. I'm sure I could just look up Sega versus Super Nintendo. I bet you someone made a video.
There you go.
How far did I get in the game, you were going to say?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask.
I did beat it at some point. I remember because the credits were like you were in the office kind of running around.
Does it have 50 levels?
No, I think it has more.
More. Wow.
And that, yeah, I want to say it's more than 50. It was quite some time. All right, so we're looking at the Sega Genesis. See how they manage it off to the side of the screen?
I can't see it right now.
Oh, because I didn't bring up the thing. I'm an idiot.
This
Okay, here
time
we
at
go,
least I
guys.
spoke up.
All right, so here's the gameplay in Sega Genesis, and they have off to the right, it's a black bar, and you have your health, what sub weapon
Yeah.
and regular weapon you have, and then your little map.
Yep.
On the Super Nintendo version, it's overlaid on top of your gameplay footage, like on the top of the screen.
Huh. What do you like better?
So this is a little cleaner, but I then also
You're also losing part of your screen.
losing part of your screen where I guess you could say the Super Nintendo is more widescreen or whatever, it takes up more of the screen, more of the real estate. But it could be hard to be like, oh, I didn't know how many keys I had left, or I couldn't see this.
Right, right.
But they give you that. That's why they give you that option. You can turn on your tracker on and off, so it's not in your way of the gameplay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of people I think might prefer this one over the Super Nintendo just because of maybe the layout, maybe the button
Hmm.
layout on that. But let's see, Super Nintendo.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
Let's jump into the action.
I like that.
I'll just skip ahead a little bit. But see how you have it right on top?
Oh,
Right here?
yeah.
So it's overlaid on the gameplay. I mean, it's not super annoying, but you do get the full screen. I do like that instead of that little black bar.
I prefer the SNES then.
I guess it always said comes down to what you played growing up. Maybe you're used to playing the other version. Maybe you rented one over the weekend, and you're like, yeah, whatever.
I think I just like seeing that purple monster.
You drink the potion, become
Yeah.
the purple monster. Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I had 2 more on this list.
That is an interesting difference, though. Like
Right,
stylistically.
same game, but slightly stylized, like
Yeah.
where menus are. But they kept the core gameplay.
Yeah.
Earthworm Jim. How about that one?
Played it on the SNES. Once again, never played it on the Genesis. I'm assuming, obviously, one of the differences that we're going to bring up every time is the music. It has that
Right.
tone, that Genesis tone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the feel again too, the feel of the controller is going to be different. Maybe you preferred the bulkier Sega controller, or if you were using the 6-button controller, then it's a
So
little
you want to
better.
hear kind of a funny story?
Okay.
So I remember going to my friend Scott Aiken's house. Well, shout out to Scott, as a kid, and he had a Genesis. And I remember getting home, and after all weekend of playing his Genesis, like my Super Nintendo controller felt so tiny, and I called this phenomenon Sega hand. It's like, oh, I have Sega hand. Man, he was used to holding the Genesis all weekend.
I feel like that's almost similar to I would play the Wii U with the gamepad, and then you try
Yeah.
to switch to like a pro controller to play something, and you're like, I'm so used to being wide gripped.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that Sega controller is like a boomerang. It's crazy big.
I know it. All right, so here's the Sega version. It
You can
looks
hear
pretty much the same, but again, you get that slightly different sound effects. With
you can hear that Genesis twang.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to look up while we're on here. I want to say this one had different levels
Okay.
that you didn't get. Let me see if I could do a quick search. Obviously, we didn't do a whole lot of research, unfortunately, on this episode.
We're
Just
doing it
going-
on the fly, baby.
Doing
Just
it on the fly.
bear with us.
Earthworm Jim, SNES versus Sega. And see if I could find anything. Because I'm pretty sure there might have been a different level.
You think they just give you like one bonus level or a couple of them, or
Maybe. Let's
these
see.
developers are not as lazy as I am. I would be like, same game, here you go.
I'm on a Reddit post and seeing what people are saying on here. Someone says SNES version is missing sound effects, levels, and has stretched graphics. The sound of the
Huh.
music is um, preference, but EJ is one of the rare times I think Genesis version has the better music.
Stretched graphics. I don't like the sounds of that.
So I'm not too sure. At one point, I had the music for the level "What the Heck" as my alarm clock on my cell. Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know that. I haven't played this game enough to really be fluent with it.
Right. I've beaten this one a few times. Maybe this one isn't. I know some of. I wish there's a game that definitely has with Sega versus Super Nintendo where they have different added levels.
Oh, you know another game? I don't know if this made your list or not, but Aladdin.
Yes, yeah, Aladdin and Lion King, right?
Yeah,
Those
because
Disney games.
even the fighting mechanic on Aladdin's different. One they give
Yes,
you a
so
little sword, and one you have to throw apples.
right, so that's another good point of Super Nintendo versus Sega, where Sega's kind of that edgier console, right? And they're like, "Oh,
Give
let's
him
give
the
Aladdin a
sword.
sword." And Nintendo's like, "You know what? He throws apples.
Eh,
Keep it PJ. You can't have a pointy
you
thing."
can burn Goombas, but you got to throw the apples on Aladdin.
So yeah, those are the differences there, where it's same property, right? But different gameplay. It's similar gameplay, right?
Similar,
They're both platformers, but you have a different outcome with it.
yeah. I've heard arguments for both sides. I think for that particular game, being Aladdin, I'm a Genesis guy.
Yeah.
Give me that knife. Give me that sword. Sword.
What else? Oh, you had me add Tasmania, Super NES versus Sega.
Yeah, so Taz-Mania, completely different game on the two systems. Genesis is a side-scrolling platformer. A lot of fun. Couple annoying sound effects, but overall, I like it a lot. Super NES, you're just like running through the desert, eating kiwi birds.
Gotta eat those kiwi birds.
Is it in that? Am I saying that right? Kiwi craze? Yeah, kiwi. Yeah,
Think
this
so.
is great. This is the Genesis. I always thought this looked so sick. It looks just like the cartoon to me. I absolutely love this game.
Yeah, I don't think I played this one before.
It's one of my favorite games on the Genesis. I got really close to beating it, but I never did. Like, I don't know if I got past the rail cart.
Yeah, it looks like pretty fun platformer. And then we'll take a look at the Super Nintendo
The Super
version.
Nintendo one is as boring as all get out.
Again, this could come down to who's developing the game, right? The rights that go to, so it's not the same team doing both games.
Yeah. But like, what a disappointment if that's the Genesis, and then on the Super NES you just have to run down the road. It's almost like Roadrunner Death Valley Rally.
It's oh, okay. I'm like, well, why
It's
is
a
the
racer.
why is he running? Like, why isn't he spinning too? Right? It's just him running.
He can spin. He will spin
Okay.
eventually. Just give him a second.
But I feel like this should be a Roadrunner game. Like,
And I think it is. I think they made a Roadrunner game that looks just like it. Death Valley
jeez.
Rally.
Oh, okay, okay. They're like, you know what? Don't need to make a new concept. This is
He
good
might
enough.
run. It might be side scrolling Death Valley Rally, but yeah, like Sega got a way better Taz game than we did. Us Super
Yeah,
Nintendo kids.
yeah. As a kid, I wouldn't want this as my.
No, this is garbage. See, there he goes.
Okay, he does spin a little bit, but yeah, I feel like the platformer was where it's at,
Yeah.
not a racing game on
No,
foot. Like,
no, this is dumb. I hate it. Take it away. Did I lose you completely?
I'm
Uh-oh.
here.
Oh, there you go. Okay, now I see you now.
I'm back.
It froze for a sec. I don't know whose end it's on.
I I did switch my Wi-Fi off to make sure I'm director because I feel like it was lagging a little bit
There
with
you
the
go.
recording. So we'll see. It's good now.
It's good.
We could jump into the comments before we get into it. We did want to touch a little bit on similar games, but
Yeah.
different systems. So like same properties and stuff like that. But we did post out to you guys to see, are you an NES kid, Sega kid? What were some of these games that you preferred on those systems? And we'll see.
What did you say? What did you say?
Springfield, let's hear from you.
All right, if you follow us on Instagram at the Weekly Warp Pipe, you can jump in and get in the comments and get your comment read on the podcast. We got
That's right.
PlayStation Shavy, I think is the name. With Mortal Kombat 1, it was Sega over SNES. But later entries in the Mortal Kombat series, SNES had the better ports.
There you go.
So there you go. Sums it up. They missed the mark with 1. They said we learned our lesson.
Yeah. Never again.
We got Ty Gaiman. I was definitely and still am a Nintendo kid. Games like A Link to the Past and Super Mario World just didn't have a similar game on the Genesis. Yeah, there's nothing to compare to that. I mean, let's see what would compare.
Phantasy Star, maybe.
Phantasy Star, maybe for Link to the Past, and Super Mario World would be
Sonic. I don't know. Not
I was
really.
gonna go with maybe like Wonder Boy,
Alex Kidd, maybe.
Alex Kidd, something like that. But I feel like those weren't marketed as well as Zelda and Mario.
No, nor were they as good.
We got Keith, Retro Kart Collector. He actually shot me the idea for this topic here. So hey, shout out to you. And we were hanging out this past week. I got to meet him in person when I was out in Southern California. So you'll see him on some upcoming videos for
Nice.
sure. So Keith says, Sunset Riders. The SNES version is fairly close to the arcade, and the Sega versions weren't as good, sadly.
I didn't even think of Sunset Riders. I thought that was SNES only. I didn't realize
Yeah.
it was on Genesis.
Yeah, I could picture the box there. I think it's an expensive one too. They can run
Probably
some
so.
good money. So sometimes they miss the mark on the ports. And then let's see what else we got. We got our community page over on YouTube. And if you're not following us on YouTube, maybe you're just listening. Feel free to check out the visuals
That's
over
right.
on our YouTube page.
Get you some looks in.
Matthew Barros says, I was a Nintendo kid until I got a Genesis.
Boo.
NES and SNES were king until 93 for me. Once I got the Genesis, I was hooked on Sega all the way through the Dreamcast.
Oh, wow.
Still love Nintendo, though.
I thought he just loved Washington.
I did the conversion in my head and assumed Dreamcast. We got Mike said, I started out as a Nintendo kid, but moved to the Genesis. I loved Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat on the Genesis more. That is, yeah, another franchise, Street Fighter, that came out on both systems.
Maybe he had a 6-button controller and didn't
True.
have to hate the Genesis port.
Rift City Ransom.
Oh, I
feel
know
like
that. I know that
was
old
gonna
boy.
I was like, I don't think I've seen him comment on here before.
His name is Jordan, and he's go check him out. Go sub to Rift City Ransom. He's been putting out shorts.
Okay.
Give him a quick little shout out because he's my buddy. He lives here in town with me. We
All
text
right.
back and forth here and there.
Can we have 2 Rifts in the retro gaming community?
Well, I think Rift City Ransom is a
Okay.
love note to Rift.
River City. Oh, is a love note to River City Ransom and Rift.
Yeah, I think that he hasn't told me that, but if I had to guess, that's where that's from.
Okay. So Riff says, definitely a Nintendo kid, but man, I love Sega. I didn't know my first Sega until the Dreamcast launched. And to this day, I think it's the most underrated console out there.
You would, Jordan. Just kidding.
We got Pure Profit. One of my favorite games growing up was Shadowrun on the SNES. I always heard rumors about there being a Sega version that was different, but never met anyone who actually had it. I now own it as an adult. I should probably get around to playing it one of these days.
You would think.
Shadowrun.
There's
Okay.
tons of games we all need to get into.
Well, I think it's fun. He kind of makes up a point where, you know, now being a retro game collector, we can purchase both copies and
That's right.
see that difference for ourselves. Where growing up, we didn't have that option. You know, maybe you only owned one of the consoles, and your parents aren't going to buy you the same game twice. Like, okay, if you get Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and then for the next birthday, I want Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but on Sega, and they're like, I already got you that game.
I'm not gonna lie, I knew a few kids that were like that.
Eh.
And I always thought they were rich.
We got Steve V's Man Cave Arcade. I was a Nintendo kid. Batman the Animated Series was a game I played on both systems,
I forgot about that one.
and the SNES version was so much better, in my opinion. They're two very different style games. Also enjoyed Aladdin on SNES.
Ooh, there's an
No sword for
SNES
you.
boat.
Sega made the game more edgy with the sword, but I didn't care.
Give me the
Yeah.
apples.
He didn't have a sword in the movie.
But he should have. He should have stabbed Jafar right in his face.
I was fine throwing apples at my enemies. LOL. Yeah, so I guess the SNES one was more faithful
See,
to the movie.
I don't know. I like the Genesis version.
Retroholic 16. Hey guys. I was definitely a Nintendo kid growing up. I always enjoyed the Disney games like Aladdin and Toy Story on the SNES, but when it came to more edgier games like Booger Man or Zombies Ate My Neighbors, I liked it on Genesis.
Yeah.
Probably due to their marketing, where they made Nintendo seem babyish. LOL. I recently played NHL 94 on both the SNES and Genesis and was pretty surprised at how much better it was on Genesis.
Yeah, they did have the better NHL game. That is true.
And I think too they hold that to the standard of they do updated ports of this game,
And it's
where
the Genesis version.
and it's the Genesis version where you can get NHL 2024, but it's on Sega Genesis with the updated roster of 2024 people.
Can I make a live confession?
Okay. You're watching hockey now?
The Stanley Cup is on. I can't.
Oh,
I can't.
I'm making you
not-
miss the Stanley Cup.
Well,
while
it's
we're recording.
it's game 3, and Edmonton is just getting waxed. I mean, they're coming back 4-3, but they got 2 minutes to tie the game.
Jeez.
So sorry, I'm keeping an eye on the game. I'm coming to the podcast, but I'm a huge hockey guy. So
There we go. We got my buddy Colby, Purge and Splurge Thrifting. He said, Nintendo kid for sure. First, the OG Nintendo before the arrival of Super NES. I didn't get a Sega Genesis of my own until really late, maybe 95, after I saved up some birthday money and bought one used cheap from Electronic Boutique.
nice.
It was cool and all, but wasn't quite the excitement factor like when I got my Super NES for Christmas.
And it never will be.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dude, Super Nintendo, the first day you bring that thing home, you're just like, what is happening?
For sure.
I remember I was actually with my friend Bo Bailey, shout out to Bo, when he got his Genesis for Christmas. And I remember being so jealous because he had both.
Oh, yeah. It's like
Oh,
best of both worlds for sure.
dude, you just get to play whatever you want. Doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Sonic or Mario, you got it all.
Right. Now I wonder how many people who owned maybe they owned whichever system when they maybe went to like Blockbuster, did they ever ask their parents like, hey, can we rent the Sega Genesis for the weekend? Can we rent the Super
Yeah.
Nintendo for the weekend just to experience it, to be like, oh, what am I missing out on? Or like, I've never rented a console ever when it was up there. Maybe I didn't know about it. I feel like it wasn't promoted. Like, I don't remember seeing signs at Blockbuster that said rent
So-
for the weekend.
The only memory I ever have of renting a console, I was with my cousin Gina in Myrtle Beach. And I remember she rented a Nintendo that weekend, and we played Nintendo at her house. And I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Didn't even know you could do that.
Right. That's what I said. I don't know how. Maybe the parents knew where to look.
Maybe,
or-
yeah.
I don't.
I don't know.
But yeah, having the game on both systems. We wanted to dive into similar games,
Yeah, I would say
but
like
they're different, right?
yeah, different games but the same, something like that.
So
Similar gameplay, similar graphics, different game.
right, like we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, right? Super Nintendo.
Great game.
But then we had TMNT Hyperstone Heist on Sega Genesis.
Yeah, very similar, like fighting style, beat 'em up style,
Yes, yes.
side scrolling turtle fighting action,
Right.
but basically different levels, right?
Different levels,
Different
and
boss fights, probably.
the controls are slightly different, funny enough, too.
Yeah,
So some people maybe prefer one over the other. I have recently played them, and I was favoring the Hyperstone Heist because how they have it set up with the dash mechanic
yeah,
for whatever reason. So on the Sega, it's like dedicated like button C, right? You got A is like attack and B is jump and then C is dash. Where on the Super Nintendo, you got 6 buttons
right,
and they make you tap forward twice the dash or tap back twice the dash. And I'm like,
right.
that's not great. That's a pain. I'm getting hit trying to dash where on the Sega I could just literally hit a
Hit
button
a button.
and
That is
boom
nice.
every time. So I was preferring
Could you throw enemies into the screen though
ooh,
on the
I don't know.
Genesis?
Maybe not. I don't know. I'm
Because
trying to
that's a
remember.
cool feature.
That is a neat feature.
Well, what about the wham, 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 where they smash them back and forth?
Oh, back and forth. So I feel like that's where you get the more like bang for your buck, or say so to say, where if you bought it, it's like, oh great, like I really enjoyed Turtles in Time, and you get it on Sega, and it's like DLC, right? It's like same experience but a little different,
Right. Yeah, kind of like that.
rather than it's the same exact game with gameplay
Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but I mean, in spirit,
in
very,
spirit.
very similar.
The other suggestion we had was Super Castlevania, right? On Super Nintendo.
Right.
And you also got Castlevania Bloodlines on
No, those
Sega Genesis.
experiences I would say are a bit more different
Than
than
the Turtles.
the Turtles games, you know,
Right.
because the Turtles games, the sprites even are similar, you know, but this game, like Simon Belmont on Super Castlevania 4, looks nothing like John Morris on Bloodlines or Eric Licard. So, you know, same franchise, totally different game.
Totally different game. Yeah. And it's certainly, yeah, they have their disadvantages, advantages of what people like. I know Jay's really big fan of Super Castlevania and doesn't hold the other one too highly.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a totally biased opinion. I'm gonna admit, but yeah, I don't know. And then the other one that I mentioned earlier was but so there's Buster Bust Loose on the Super Nintendo, and then on the Sega it's like Buster Bunny's Hidden Treasure Adventure. I don't exactly know the name, but I'm assuming that the levels are just different. You know, probably similar looking Buster Bunny animation, like sprite or whatever, but I think that the levels are just completely different. So
Completely different. I'm looking up some gameplay for
well,
the
I think the story is you know it's a different story in the two games.
but both have Buster Bunny from Tiny Toons in it.
Yeah. See, this is more like a side-scrolling action. Well, I guess that first one's side-scrolling, but
Yeah.
he's cute.
Right. Yeah. And then what do we got? Buster Bust Loose.
Yeah.
Bust Loose SNES. Let's see. Keep that image in our mind. And here we go. Buster Tiny Toon Adventure. Still there's side scrolling action. So not exactly at different levels. Yeah, like you said.
Yeah.
They're both side scrollers. I don't know if they both have mini games or not, but slightly different. So you could almost compare this one down to like the the Turtles versus
It's kind of
each
more
other.
similar to the Hyperstone Heist, where it's like very similar kind of gameplay, probably, but just
Mhm.
different levels.
Right.
But it's kind of cool that they like you had that option. But who knew you like who knew which one you would prefer? You know, based
Right.
on
If
like
you
a
had,
commercial.
I guess if you had both systems, then you were in the dilemma of which one do I get it on. But if you only had a Super Nintendo or only had a Sega, you're like, well, I'm getting this game. Maybe my friend next door who has a Sega is going to get the other one and I can check it out.
Yeah.
I did add this on there, which I thought was kind of interesting, was they have Blaster Master,
Yeah.
right? Is on NES.
Right.
I don't think it came out on Master System, but Blaster Master 2 came out on Sega Genesis, not on
That's
Super Nintendo.
that's interesting.
So you're like, oh,
Oh, also Sunsoft game?
yeah. Sunsoft put
Hmm.
it out, and it, it's like kind of plays similar to what Blaster Master is, just with that updated 16-bit graphic look.
Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah. So I've never played this one, but I knew it was on the Sega. So I was like, I wonder if they, I don't know, didn't make the deal. Oh wait, okay, let me see. Developed by Software Creations. So not Software Creations, not Sunsoft.
But it does look
Oh, exclusive and published exclusively in North America by Sunsoft of America for Sega Genesis. Okay, so there's your there's your blurb on it. So kind of neat. I don't know why it didn't come out on Super Nintendo, where you're having the sequel on the competitor system.
yeah, it looks cool though. Like I like the little vehicle.
Blaster Master 2, Sega Genesis. Jurassic Park, you wanted me to mention, Jay?
Yeah, so on the SNES, it's like this top down, view. You're this little dude collecting. Is it eggs you're collecting? I can't remember
I
exactly.
think so. Yeah.
And then on the Genesis, you get this cool side scrolling action, platformer. Where the real cool part was you could be the dinosaur, and I thought that was such a cool take that you could be the raptor and play from his perspective. Um,
Right.
so I thought the Genesis one was like had more,
More going for it, almost, or more appeal to the kids,
yeah,
maybe.
more badassery, Just seemed cooler. Like, oh, I get to be a dinosaur. Like that's freaking cool.
Right. Yeah. You're like, and so, almost like, hey, maybe I wanted to play as the Joker or the bad guy. It's like,
It
you usually don't
just
get those options.
like it just like this one just seemed more dangerous, and I also liked that it looked more like how I saw the movie. Like, everything looked more realistic.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying now, opposed to the NES one where you get
On the
this
yeah, on the
top down
SNES
looking
on the
or
SNES,
whatever.
it looks more cartoonish.
Jurassic Park, SNES.
Like this
Yeah, they went with that kind
like,
of
look how
over
T-Rex
exaggerated.
looks like a fat turtle right there or something. It's so weird.
The old fat turtle. So again, that's the whole Nintendo is
It's
babyish, and
baby. Yeah.
Sega is
See, this looks
edgier.
like Zombie Ate My Neighbors meets Jurassic Park.
It does. Yeah, that's how basically you can describe it there.
Oh, like, see, that raptor didn't even seem scary.
Yeah, it's interesting how they chose this view, and then with the Sega, it's more of the side scrolling stuff, and it's for whatever reason more immersive that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This one just seemed cheesy to me. Not a fan.
Yeah, I never played this one, but maybe I'll give it a go.
It's boring. That's all I'll say
Boring.
about it. I thought it was extremely boring when I played it.
It's no fun. No, sir.
No
I don't
fun.
like it.
No, sir, I don't like it.
See if we touched on everything here. Same game, different system. Were you an NES kid or Sega kid? And like we said, most people didn't own both systems, right? You weren't lucky enough to have them both and experience both games. Some did.
It
But
wouldn't
usually
be
maybe you're
until about 20, 25 years later when you decided to be like me and Russ and buy all our childhood games.
that could be
But
another topic to touch in, but or tacked onto this where now that we're older collectors, right? Are you buying the games on both systems? Like, do you put them in your collection, or you're like, well, I already have it on Super Nintendo and I prefer that one. Why do I need two copies of Zombies Ate My Neighbors or
so
Earthworm Jims?
so 8 to 10 years ago, I was buying for both. Now I'm on like collection 3.0,
Yeah,
where I'm like very laser focused. So
that is true. Or luckily, maybe you got one of the classic systems and it does have the games in it, so you can check them out that way.
or you
enjoy
can
them that
mod it
way.
like Russ, even if it's not on there, you put it on there anyway.
Put it on there anyway as a backup.
That's right.
Legal standpoint.
Legal standpoint, it's back up. So
Sweet. That's all we got. Hey, if you guys want to call into the show, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voicemail at 949-682-9277. That's 949-682-WARP. Leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on the show. And you can check us out at theweeklywarpipe.com. We got t-shirts there. We got buttons, stickers, magnets, anything to support the
we need
show.
a sweet hat like that Mort's Garage hat you're wearing.
I did look into doing like the patch or whatever, but it's tough because our logo has so many colors in it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I have to, I don't know, you have to like dial back how many colors it has.
Gotcha.
So I could find some other place that does hats that's not stitched. And it's tough to get a big patch. It's like very small.
Gotcha.
But I might have added them on there. There could be on there. It's because I was trying to put a bunch of merch on there. But we definitely do have shirts, and they come in assorted of colors.
That's
I
right.
know Andy from the 90s Are Rad wants to pick up a black shirt because I have a white one that has the Warpipe logo on the front and back. He's like,
I'm gonna get that
black?
white. I'm gonna get that white one eventually.
Well, the white one kind of reminded me of the NES Addict shirt that I have.
That's right.
There you go.
Fan.
If you want to support the show further, you can check us out on Patreon. It's under my name /Russ Lyman. Goes back into the show. We got our top tier Patreons: Dan and Nicole's Treasures Untold, Joe Sheevy, Trace Living Good, Samantha Chang, Rodney Torres, Retroholic 16, and Austin Mills. Appreciate your support. And check out the other episode we do every Wednesday is Warp Pipe Wednesday. You can join us there for more content if you enjoy hearing us blabber about retro stuff.
That's the W for Warpipe Wednesday. Gang signs.
Sweet. Appreciate
Where we're
it.
at right now.
Now I'm trying to remember what was our slogan. Thanks so much for jumping in the Warp Pipe with us. And then, what the heck was it? Keep it retro? No. Forgot it. I'm messing it up. Take a week off. You forget how to end the show.
It's all good. Just do you.
Just do you. Enjoy your weekend. We'll figure it out next week.